Okay, here we go. Question 6. Function c is defined by the equation c of n equals 50 plus 4n. So this function gives the monthly cost in dollars of visiting a gym as a function of the number of visits n. Let's get this little highlighter right here. Okay, c of n, here's our cost. Right, this function c gives this cost of your monthly membership as a function of n, right? Here's n. Here's the number of visits. We're going to, just looking at this, I can tell that we're going to pay $4 for each visit. 4 times n. And then we got this 50. This is kind of an expensive gym. You got to pay $50 just for your monthly membership. And then every single time you go, you're going to pay another $4 on top of that. So even if you go 0 times, you're going to pay $50 for the month. So let's see here. In this situation, what information would the inverse function give us? Okay, so we look. Notice how it says give us. What would this inverse give us? Well, here I see the word gives. Look for the word gives. You know what? When your function says something equal to something, here's the y. This is the output. We plug in our input n. This is our independent variable. That's what goes on the horizontal axis of our graph. We plug in n, the number of visits. And what do we get out? Our output is on the vertical axis of the graph. That's going to be our cost. So look for, there's always two things in these. For one thing, it's going to say gives the monthly cost, and then it's going to say as a function of the number of visits. So look at the two things in the sentence. Look what it gives, and then look what it is a function of. It gives the monthly cost, and it's a function of the number of visits. And you know what the inverse means? Inverse means opposite. We're just going to switch those two things around. So if you got an inverse function, it's going to give you the number of visits as a function of the monthly cost. So I like to tell the story about the inverse soda machine. Like we all know soda machines where we put $1 in and it gives us a soda. Soda machines give a soda as a function of the number of dollars you put in there. If we somehow came up with an inverse soda machine, we would put sodas into the machine and it would give us dollars back. So the inverse soda machine would give us dollars as a function of how many sodas we put in. So let's switch these two things out. Look for the two things. Look for what it says it gives you and what it says is a function of, and just swap those out. That's all we got to do. So what does the inverse function gives us? The inverse gives the inverse function gives my handwriting is a little bit. I'm going to make sure you know that that's an I. Function gives. My eyes are getting a little. I'm not separating the dot from the I. The inverse function gives the number of visits. I think a lot of people, when they read this question, they're trying to think of some number, right? But no, we're looking for these two things. But the other function, what it was the function of, was the number of visits. Well, this inverse is going to give us that as a function of the monthly cost. And that's why we want to have inverse equations, right? You can use the original equation to plug in the number of visits you did, and then you'll find out what the cost was. Well, if you can write the inverse function like we're going to do down here, we could plug in the cost, and it would give us the number of visits that we had. So let's do that. How do we find the inverse function? Start with the original. What was my original function? C of n equals 50 plus 4n. And now we got to get that independent variable by itself. Here's our input. X is what we plug in. In this case, it's n for number of visits. We need to get n all by itself here. So we're just going to do some inverse operations to get that n by itself, and then our new function will give us this number of visits as a function of the cost. All right, so you always remember we add or subtract first. A lot of times when I ask people what should we do first, they say, oh, maybe we divide by 4. You could do that, but then you'd have to divide 50 by 4 and C of n by 4, and now you're making a bigger mess than you already have. First, what you want to do, get rid of the 50. Before you divide or multiply, go ahead and get rid of the 50 if you can. If you got something you can add or subtract, do that. There's no plus sign in front of that 50, but we know it's positive because there's no minus sign in front of it. So what's the opposite? Minus 50. That's going to cancel that out. If I do something to one side, I got to do it to the other. And then a lot of people get confused here. They're like, "What? How can I subtract 50 from C of n?" You're just going to write C of n minus 50. You're going to have C of n in your answer. So C of n minus 50 equals 4n. Now I got 4n by itself, and I'm trying to get n all by itself. Then I'll have switched my input and my output. So if you see a number next to a variable like this, 4 is being multiplied times n. So the opposite would be division. Let's divide by 4 to get n by itself. I'm going to use purple for my inverse operation. I'll divide by 4 to cancel that out. And then remember, divide this whole other side. Don't just divide the C of n or the 50. Divide everything over here by 4. And our final answer, let's see if I can scoot this over a little bit so I can write it over here. C of n, or I'm sorry, n. Here's our new inverse function equals C of n minus 50 divided by 4. Will tell you how many number of times you went to the gym as a function of the cost. Let's circle this. Here's our final answer. And then now we get down here to find the value of C of 7. Okay, so return to the original thing. Take this C of 7. They want you to take this and do something with it up here, with this original equation they gave us. So why do you think they would take this 7 right here, I've highlighted in orange, and plug it in there where there used to be an n in there? What do you think they want us to do? You know what they want us to do? Take the 7 and swap it out for the n over here. What they're asking is, what would be the cost if we went to the gym a number of 7 times? So here we go. Let's write the original function. C of n equals the $50 plus the $4 for each visit. Next, let me just adjust my little plus sign here. It's looking kind of weird. 50 plus 4n, I took the original equation they gave me. Now, why they say 7? We're going to take that, we're going to write it in orange. Let's get rid of this n. Pop a 7 in here. In orange, it's highlighted in orange. They want to know how much it costs for 7 visits. So what do I need to do? I need to swap out 7 for n over here. Times 7. Alrighty. So 4 times 7. We're going to get 28. If you ever get stuck, you don't know your multiplication tables, you don't have a calculator, don't freak out. Just add up 7 4 times. 7 plus 7 is 14. 14 plus 7 is 21. 21 plus 7 is 28. So what we got here is C of 7 equals 50 plus 28. Add them together. C of 7 equals 78. So you're going to pay $78 if you go to this gym 7 times. I hope it's pretty nice because that's pretty expensive. And there we go. That's question 6.